All right, all right. Good day, good people. How are y'all doing today? What's it, October 28th? Okay, cool. So I have some stuff to go over. It probably won't be as long as it usually is. I don't know. We'll see. But I have quite a few things to go over, some discussions to bring up. So I'm excited about, well, I'm excited every week, let's be real, but we have some stuff to cover. So I'm just trying to make sure I go live everywhere. So give me just a moment, as per the usual. At least I'm on time today, though. Let's see. All right. So just to give you a little preview of what I'll be going over, there was some news that came out about credit scores. So I'll definitely be going over that. And then there's some news about how Elon Musk now owns Twitter. So I'll be going over that. And then also some new IRS updates. So I'll be going over that as well. And those are the three things that I have on my agenda. But if you all have any questions, feel free to shoot them in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to address those. All right, so I am live everywhere now. So let's go ahead and get started because also my son is here because school is closed. And so he's already banging on my door talking about he's hungry. So um, I'm going to try to make this quick so that way I can feed my child. So let's get started. Let's start with the best news. Okay. So, the best news that I have for you all is that the FHFA, which is the Federal Housing Finance Agency, is replacing the classic FICO with a more inclusive credit model. So, what they're doing is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will accept the FICO 10T and the VantageScore 4.0 in a multi-year effort with the industry. Now, why is this good news? It's good news because the new model will also take into consideration payment history such as rent, utilities, telecom payments, stuff like that. So all of that stuff will now be looked at when you're looking to buy a house versus just what's currently looked at on your credit score. So I think that's good news and it'll help people get in two houses a little easier. Like let's say they've been renting somewhere for 20 years, but that's like, most of their credit history. Then now it could be taken into consideration. So they believe that it will provide more accurate credit scores. And they believe the market, including investors, will be provided with an improved understanding of risk from not just one, but two different credit score models. So, like I said, they're switching over to FICO 10T and VantageScore 4.0. Shout out to Markia, the money plug, for letting me know this information so I can cover it today. She specializes in credit, so definitely check her out. But I thought that this was great news, and I was like, I'm definitely sharing this with my audience. So they did say this is a multi-year thing, so don't think it's going to happen immediately, but it is coming. And they made that announcement on Monday. So look forward to that. So that was the best news. Second best news is that the IRS is changing. So for tax year 2022, which is this year, so when you file taxes come next year, they have upped the standard deduction. So the standard deduction is the amount of money that is pretty much exempt from taxes. So the standard deduction is going up $800 for married couples filing jointly. It's going up, let me see, $400 for single taxpayers and married individuals filing separately. And for head of households, the standard deduction is going up $600. So It's minimal, but they're doing it for inflation purposes, which a lot of things have been making changes. I mean, it's minimal, but just think of it this way. If you're filing head of household, that's $600 more in your pocket that you do not have to be taxed on. So just keep that in mind. They said the personal exemption is still going to remain at zero as it was for 2021. That's not changing. They are changing the marginal tax rate. So if you didn't know, our tax rates are on a graduated schedule. So what does that mean? That means the more you make, okay, it's kind of complicated a little bit, but how it works is, and I'll just go over the new numbers as I'm explaining. So these are the numbers that are going to be for tax year 2022. Okay. So the lowest rate is 10%, and that's for incomes of single individuals, 10 that make $10,275 or less, or $20,550 for married couples filing jointly. Okay. So follow me, y'all. I don't want to lose you. So any money that you make outside of the standard deduction and that falls into that income range, you're going to be taxed 10% as your income tax. Okay. Now, it goes to the next level, 12% for incomes over 10,275 or 20,550 respectively. But below the next tier, which is 41,775. So if you have, let's say, and let's just try some round numbers here because I don't want to do all this mental math for the purposes of explaining this. Let's say you're filing head of household and the standard deduction for head of household is $19,400. Okay. Let's say you make $50,000 that year. So if that's the case, $19,400, and this is not including any other deductions, any other tax stuff. I'm just trying to make this easy. So we made, what I say, 50,000. So 19,400 of that, I don't have to worry about anyway. Then, so let's just round that to 20. I'm just trying to make it easy. So then I'll be taxed at 10% for the next 10,275. Then for the last little bit, I'll be taxed at 12% because that's over 10,275. So hopefully that makes sense and didn't confuse you. I tried to explain it the best way possible, but highly recommend if you don't understand to read up on it or ask your tax professional. But that's kind of the gist of where this is going. All right, so let's go to the next tier. 22% for incomes over 41,775, 83,550 if you're married filing jointly, 24% for incomes over $89,075 or $178,150 for married filing jointly, 32% for incomes over $170,050 or $340,100 for married filing jointly, 35% for incomes over $215,950 or $431,900 for married filing jointly. And then the top tax rate remains the same at 37% for individual taxpayers with incomes greater than $539,900 or $647,850 for married couples filing jointly. So if you didn't catch all of that, feel free to rewind in the replay, or if you're listening to the podcast, feel free to rewind there. But that is the new marginal tax rate structure. So it's going to change slightly. So with all that being said, Tiffany, why does this even matter and why is it important? It matters because when you're looking at your taxes, right? So now you might want to go and look at your W-4, maybe update your W-4 depending on what you put as your exemptions. Now they do it by dollar amount. So just make sure that you follow that worksheet to the T. So that way you can be set up for when tax season comes. And I always highly recommend that people, make sure that they're still getting the right deductions taken out of their paycheck at least once or twice a year. Just make sure nothing has changed. If you ever have any changes in your family structure, I'm talking marriages, divorces, new kids, somebody passes away, make sure that you are updating your W-4 as well. So that way you won't be surprised come tax season. Okay. So that's why that's important. Um, as far as other highlights, I mean, they made other changes, but I'm not going to go into all of them. For the tax year 2022, maximum earned income tax credit amount is $6,935 for qualifying taxpayers who have 3 or more qualifying children. So that's the max you can get for the earned income tax credit this year. And that's a raise because it was $6,728 for 2021. So they made a few raises and different things. I highly recommend, this is straight from the IRS website, so you can always go to irs.gov and figure out which ones apply to you. I don't want to get into all of them, but they did post this. Already, so you should know. All right, so now let's get into kind of like, I went over the important, stuff. Now let's just get into just some fun stuff, right? So the news broke that Elon Musk now owns Twitter. Okay, so he now owns Twitter. And the first thing he did was fired the CEO, the CFO, and the policy chief of Twitter. He says the bird is freed after he finishes the $44 billion deal. Some Twitter users are nervous about this. They're like, shoot, we'll walk away from the platform if it doesn't go like we think it is. And I actually made a tweet this morning. So if you're on Twitter, go over there and definitely let me know your thoughts. But I asked, and I'll ask you all here as well, what are your thoughts about this? Like, do you think the Twitter platform is going to get better, or do you think it's going to get worse? I know that the employees are nervous about their jobs because I'm going to be honest with you. When I was in HR, I've been through mergers and acquisitions, and anytime a merger or acquisition happens, usually there's changes, okay? Part of those changes is usually some of the C-suite, management team, they get replaced or fired or what have you. And then the other part is that the workers, some of them have to get laid off. And so Musk has already said that he wants to cut down on the amount of workers that work at Twitter. So of course, the employees are nervous, and I do not blame them at all. And hopefully, well, they're supposed to have an all hands meeting today. Hopefully it ends up well, but I can say that just from experience, mergers and acquisitions are just horrible to company culture, employee engagement. It is a rough thing to overcome if it's not done correctly, because, people are going to lose their jobs, and it's unfortunate, but this is usually what happens. So none of that is really groundbreaking, but because it's Elon Musk, it's like, okay, what's going to happen with the platform? If you kind of look at his history of, kind of culture at his companies, it doesn't look too good, just historically speaking. So we'll see what happens. But I would like to pose that question to you all. Do you think the Twitter platform is going to get better or worse now that Elon owns it? Because now he officially owns it. So what do you all think? Now, he tweeted and said the bird is freed, but Europe said, oh, yeah, well, that's fine and dandy, but we're going to tell you that you still gonna follow our rules over here in the EU. And so they actually made a tweet, and let me see if I can find it because I want to. Okay, so I want to quote it. He said, "In Europe, the bird will fly by our EU rules." So Europe is like, okay, that's fine. Like, have your platform, but you are still going to have to follow our rules. You are not above us. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but I'm just curious to see how the platform is going to change. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I see one person says they've never used it. You know, out of all of the platforms, they have the slowest growth. You know, it's not too many people on there. I mean, in the grand scheme of things compared to Instagram and Facebook and all of them. But I will say, as a user of Twitter, that it is pretty cool. And there's a lot of like sub communities on Twitter. So that's what I like. It's really good for engagement. But anyway, um, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes for real. Because if you think about it, because he's like, oh, yeah, freedom of speech, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, is freedom of speech really a thing? Because if you honor freedom of speech for one group, it might silence another group unintentionally, if that makes sense. And so it's just some things to think about. And then I think about the advertisers. You know, if let's say, for instance, he's like, anybody can say whatever they want on the platform, nobody gets banned, blah, blah, blah. I assume there's going to be a ton of hate speech, you know, a ton of stuff like that, because that's where they would be able to do it. So for advertisers, would they want their ad next to some hate speech? You know what I'm saying? So are they going to start losing advertisers where 80% of their revenue or so comes from advertisers? So would this have a detrimental effect on that? We shall see. We just gonna have to see what happens. But I just thought that was an interesting topic to bring up because I posted on Twitter and it's been garnering a lot of conversation. So if you are on Twitter, please go over there and just let me know what you think. You can follow me at Money Talk with T and see that post. So that's all I have for you all today. Like I said, I'm super excited about, you know, they're replacing the classic FICO and now are going to start considering people's rent and utility payments when it comes time to buy a house. Also glad that the IRS is making tax inflation adjustments for tax year 2022. So when you file your taxes for next year, it'll be a little different. Make sure that you're updating your W-4. That's super important. If you didn't update it earlier this year, which you should have, then make sure you just take a look at it now and make sure that you're getting what you need deducted so you don't owe taxes or get too big of a refund. You know, the goal is really to be at like zero, not owe and not get anything. But anyway, make sure that you update that information and then just let me know what you think about the whole Musk Twitter situation because I would love to hear. So thank you so much for joining me today. Told you it would be a little quick. I think we're at 15 minutes or so. So I appreciate you all joining me. And if you're watching the replay, feel free to drop your comments. If you have questions, I always go back and answer those. So I appreciate you all joining me. This is Finance Friday Live. Every Friday at 12 p.m., I go over the news that you need to know so that way you can keep your money game up. All right. Bye, y'all.